Oh, listen to this. Donations to the Clinton Foundation took a 58% nosedive when Hillary lost her layup election, causing her to sit in a bubbling puddle of self-pity asking, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. This pay-to-play favor factory had no more juice. So the money dried up. In 2016, when HRC was on the brink of certain nearly unchecked power, the sham scam took in an earth-shattering $62 million in party cash. In 2017, just a year later, they brought in a measly $26 million. Ooh, that's going to leave a mark. Why would billionaires and corrupt monarchs funnel so much dough unless there were guaranteed favors baked into the gifts? The short answer, they wouldn't. And once it became clear Hillary had no more power to offer, they didn't. The Clintons have always maintained their foundation was an above-board bastion of goodness and a saintly shop where lives were changed by the blessed trinity of shady saviors. When the badness of their campaign became apparent, why would the stinky fiefdoms of Qatar and Oman waste their millions on a self-pitying harpy who is now as useful as teats on a bull? The Justice Department is smelling a whole lot of bull as the true nature of this game is made plain, and now they're investigating illegal policy moves by the former Secretary of State to see if she was pinching whale butts at Foggy Bottom. Well, you'd think Hillary would have more opportunity to do good with all this free time on her hands. If the charity were really that altruistic and effective, and with 3 essentially unemployed executives ready to roll up their sleeves, wouldn't these giving givers toss more checks to such a valiant bunch? Well, it is never okay for politicians to abuse their power for self-enrichment, and even for has-beens and also-rans, there has to be some brand of justice so present and future presidents don't get lured into taking crafty, well-disguised bribes, pretending it's charity. And that's the memo. Hillary Clinton is desperately trying to stay relevant and just launched a 13-city tour with Bill dubbed An Evening... Oh, I'm sorry. I got bored just reading that. An Evening with the Clintons. But is the drying up of donations to their foundation evidence that maybe they should wrap the whole thing up? Let me ask tonight's panel. She's co-founder of Global Opportunity Advisors. Morgan Ortega is here, along with criminal defense attorney David Bruno, and Reason Magazine editor-at-large and co-host of the Fifth Column podcast. It is Matt Welch. Welcome, everyone.
Hiya.
Yay. So it's not a surprise that donations to the Clinton Foundation went down, but it is kind of shocking by how much the cash flow receded.
Yeah, and so the Clinton Foundation is saying that the reason why they had so fewer is because they didn't have the Clinton Global Initiative, which is this big, massive conference that they do during UN General Assembly Week, which is where they get all their donors. It's the who's who of the media schmoozing with each other. But so that's why they're claiming it went down. I will say, in fairness to the Clinton Foundation, that they actually did do a lot of good work. The issue is not the work that the foundation did. The issue is the fact that these countries were paying the Clinton Foundation while Hillary was Secretary of State. I think that's what it all comes down to. And listen, if there's some way that they can resurrect this, get it out of politics, and maybe, you know, combine it with another, like the Gates Foundation or something, can continue good work, I'm all for that. I have no problem with doing good in the world. But unfortunately, you've got a lot of smutty things that were around it.
You know, you also have a Clinton Foundation executive who left 150 voicemails for Cheryl Mills while she was at the State Department.
That's a lot of voicemails.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a lot of business, and there were billionaires and the Crown Prince of Bahrain who were granted an audience with Her Majesty Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and you know, some got deals and some didn't. Is it all above board, and will there ever be any accountability here?
Well, like you said in the monologue, this is being looked at by the Department of Justice. Last year, United States Attorney Sessions did refer this to the Utah Attorney General.
John Huber.
Yeah. And you're going to be hearing a lot about this because Representative Meadows says that they have subpoenaed him for December 5th. So he's going to be called to testify about where they are in this investigation. So if you
it's going to be the last time, because once Democrats take over the House,
going to be over.
You're not going to hear anything about the Clinton Foundation ever again.
Well, maybe on the Senate side, because right, the Republicans still control those committees. But you're right. I mean, we need an answer from the Department of Justice on this because they have been looking at this for a while.
Matt?
The Clintons are like everybody else except grosser. All politicians, or at least many of the high-profile ones, let's say, not all, do this kind of stuff. You go into office as a pauper, as Bernie Sanders. You come straight off the commune and you get into power, and somehow you end up being able to afford all these houses later on. But after you leave office, many people get involved in kind of influence peddling rackets.
But there's a difference between being out of office and being sort of the Centrum Silverback, where you can spin a good yarn and someone will give you $100,000 for a speaking fee, and someone who was Secretary of State and then had almost a surefire presidency ahead, and that's when they made the money, when they thought Hillary was definitely running for president and she was going to annihilate the competition. That's the favor they were selling.
So what the Clintons do is that they're like everybody else, except they're overachievers. They're even more skeevy and gross and blatant about all of this. And you're right. I mean, but what Henry Kissinger sells is that he can always get a meeting at the White House, or he can always get a meeting with somebody.
Yeah, but there's a difference between getting a meeting and actually being in power. And rubber stamping stuff for rich billionaires and corrupt gay killers who are just currying favor to the tune of $25 million.
Amen. We disagree now.
Wrong. Hey, hallelujah. Never disagree with Matt Welch. I've got a news alert now. Special counsel Robert Mueller's team has accused former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort, who was found guilty of several financial crimes, of breaching his plea agreement by repeatedly lying to investigators. Paul Manafort lied about stuff? The news comes as former Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos checked himself into a Wisconsin prison. That is not a euphemism. Today, for his 2-week sentence, this morning President Trump launched what seems to be a preemptive strike against Mueller's final report, alleging the special counsel may have conflicts of interest, and questioning why special counsel didn't interview hundreds of people from his presidential campaign whom the president claims were happy to talk. How's this all going to play out in the court of public opinion? Let me take it back to the panel. Morgan, I go to you first.
So I think what's happened here, if you look at this, I was talking to some of my friends who are in the FBI today, and I was saying, like, break this down. Why would this happen? Essentially, what they think is that Mueller potentially did not actually know the full scope of what Manafort was up to. So say it's like a mob case, right? And you have like a mid-level guy, right? And so the mid-level guy pleads all this stuff. And then once you start going, you realize, wait, the mid-level guy was actually the one who was in charge. So they think that it's incredibly weird to have an instance where you get a plea deal from somebody.
So, but Manafort's team is going to challenge this, and they are saying he didn't. Yeah, he didn't lie at all. He didn't do anything.
Right, and we talked about this off camera. So, this is the D.C. case. This isn't even the 8 counts that he's been found guilty by a jury. After he was found guilty, he entered into a plea, 2 counts to 2 conspiracies, and he agreed to 17.5 years at least within the 4 corners of the plea agreement. He thought that he was going to get cooperation. He was going to be able to decrease that with cooperation.
Get some time served.
But because he has misrepresented certain things, and it's in the agreement itself, it's the federal government in its sole discretion to come up with this misrepresentation. They could take away the mitigation. They could say no cooperation, and he's left with 17.5 years just on the D.C. case.
You know what? Yeah, well, he may come out and run a corporation like Martha Stewart did. That's not always the worst thing in the world.
Don't sleep on the next filing, which is the sentencing report that Mueller will file, right? Because it's going to be a very long report talking about how they know he lied. A long report that's going to be filed to the court. If there was any chance of Mark Whitaker blocking the actual Mueller report, and I don't think there's a strong chance of that, but if there ever was any chance, this is a way around some of it. We're going to see some of the Mueller report, I believe, in this sentencing report.
I see.
So that's laying the foundation.
You're really not going to see much of a dispute about the misrepresentation because, like I said, it's the sole discretion of the government to make that finding.
Right, but they're going to lay out why they think they know that.
But it's weird, right? It's really weird to have a cooperating, I mean, not unheard of, but it's a little bit bizarre that they had a cooperating witness that now they're saying the guy's lying.
Okay, so
I mean, more intrigue and drama.
Here's what I think, that Manafort's like, yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want. And then was like, oh, yeah, this one time it is totally awful and so bad. But he's completely lying as a wink-wink to the president, like, I lied on your behalf, buddy. Go ahead and bring the parties.
And Mueller has, generally speaking, overperformed based on what we think that he knows or what he has. So he probably had more information than Manafort.
I'll tell you what, Mueller's not screwing around. You know, everyone wants to make everyone else into a partisan hack, and maybe he's a little bit influenced. I think Comey is a hack. I don't like James Comey. I don't dislike Robert Mueller. I'll be very curious to see what he has, because he's held his cards pretty close to the vest. It will be fascinating when he lays everything down. Has he been bluffing, or does he have a royal flush?
It's a quiet bluff.
I think we're a long way from the report. I expect some additional indictments related to that.
I expect a lovely fruit tray in the green room, which the panel will enjoy. They're going to stick around because today is already turning out to be the biggest online shopping day.